Chapter 31, Ordinary People. A good swimmer alternates the position of his head both above and below the water. I'm not much of a swimmer, but I can appreciate the sentiments behind the above statement. It's another way of saying don't neglect to look below the surface, but then don't take above the surface for granted. You can miss the obvious by thinking it's too obvious, and you can miss low-hanging fruit just because you think it might not be as fresh and tasty as the fruit above it. The sea may hold many secrets in its depths, but the open sky is deep also, but is transparently so. What's hidden behind the hills may give you nightmares in the night, but the green grass does not offer any comfort on a wet and cold day. We are now in what I calculated to be the final year of the finest Colombian official dairy business inspection tour. Loci and Ferdy T were still with me, a little discouraged like myself, but not ready to call it quits. While there's life, there's hope. We were only 15 miles southeast of Ernestine. We still had about 32 dairy farms to investigate. Pig sightings had been scarce. I had 3, while Loci and Ferdy T had 2 each. We kept thinking we would chance upon a herd of pigs, but it hadn't happened yet. And to be honest, it didn't look like it was going to happen. We didn't have any artificial means of entertainment, so we would spend most evenings before going to sleep living up to Loci's surname, stargazing. Loci took a portable telescope with him wherever he went, and he would spend hours plotting the paths of stars. Ferdy T and I were content to look at the stars in their unenhanced brightness and brilliance. To paraphrase Thoreau, the stars belong to man as a gift of consolation. We finally reached the suburbs of Ernestine, a series of minor villages with names like Fitzy Town, Steinville, Wolf, through no Faulkner of their own, and Wolf's Lodge. The villages were filled with ordinary people living ordinary lives. No harm in that. In fact, they should be applauded for keeping civilization going. About a mile out of Ernestine, we said our goodbyes. Loci and Ferdy T needed to get to the spaceport, which was a few miles west of Ernestine. I asked them, "Where are you headed?" Ferdy T replied, "We're headed to Earth via Sirius and Centauri." Loci interjected, "This pig thing is intriguing. It fascinates both of us. We want to know about what really happened to the pigs. We'll be sure to send you any info we come up with," Ferdy T added. I winked at them. "I think you're leaving out one other reason you're going to Earth." They responded in unison, "Sloppy's barbecue." We laughed. It was a good way to say goodbye. Chapter 32, Jonah's Whale. Upon entering Ernestine, I immediately checked in at the Hotel de la Toledo, probably the nicest hotel on the planet. I felt like I deserved a little luxury after over 100 years in the jungle. After a long soaking in a hot bathtub, I rang room service and told the clerk to bring me something to eat, anything he wanted to order for me except claqueco. He sounded offended by my remark. There was a pause, and if he was waiting for an apology, he didn't get one. Then he said the meal would be sent up shortly. He hung up before I could say thanks. After supper, which wasn't claqueco, I began work on my final report on the state of dairy farming on Finest Colombian. I had a meeting at 10 a.m. the next morning at FCDC for the purpose of reporting my findings. I would have to pull an all-nighter to have the report ready for review. I took the chance of calling room service again for a pot of coffee to be sent to my room. Luckily, a different clerk answered, and in a few minutes I was sipping on the finest of Finest Colombian and working on the report. At 9 a.m. the next morning, it was finished, all 2,000 pages of it. I took a quick shower and headed to the FCDC offices, which were about 15 minutes away. Every place is near in Ernestine, and it really is. In fact, that's the motto for the town. I was the last one to the meeting. I was on time, so the rest of them must have got there early. Maybe they had been talking about me, speculating on whether or not I had been a miserable failure. The attendees were Key Lime West, representing the town of Ernestine and the planet Finest Colombian. Jonas Humpback of Weimar Republic Farms, representing the plantation owners, dairy farmers, and various illegal cartels. Comish X to the 10th power, representing the CDC/Acme. Assistant Comish X to the 9th power, Comish X to the 10th power's assistant, and Captain Zelda Zurich, commander of the I'll See You in the Rapture, representing the Syrian I'll See You in the Rapture space freighter, representing Syrian trading interest, and of course, myself, representing greater humanity. Key Lime chaired the meeting and brought it to order by simply clearing her throat. Okay, Nick, tell us what you got. I could tell Key Lime wasn't a stickler on decorum. I decided to be blunt as she was. Pigs are on the loose. What? Jonah let out what sounded like a cry of agony. Zelda exhibited her command present. Shut up, Jonah. Let the man talk. Somehow pigs have escaped Earth and are flourishing throughout this sector of the galaxy. My hunch is that some cabal is actively involved in the enterprise. First, they negate dairy cattle, then beef cattle. Meat eaters will be pushed toward bacon. I tried to be succinct as possible. This was not a good time for wasted words. Everyone was in shock. Key Lime suggested we take a break and collect our thoughts. Chapter 33, Mercury Falling. The meeting had resumed. Everyone seemed to be a little calmer. Zelda was the first to speak. It appears we are in the midst of a bacon revolution. Jonah started to scream, but Zelda's stare kept him in check. I spoke up. I think Zelda is right. What do you think, X? I looked at X, but before he could answer, I looked at Assistant Commish X to the 9th power and asked, "Do we call you X too?" "No," she said. "Call me 999999999." She smiled. I apologized to X for asking two questions of two people at the same time. "No problem, Nick. We get that question all the time." Now X smiled. "But to answer your first question, what do I think? Think of pigs on the loose theory? I think it's entirely possible." Key Lime showed a slight smirk. "Now that's real nice that everybody is agreeing with each other. But what the hell are we going to do about it? I've got a planet's reputation to protect. This could be an economic disaster, or it could be an economic opportunity. Have you ever thought about opening up barbecue restaurants?" And now Zelda smiled. A soft, evanescent light seemed to emanate from Key Lime's face. "Beef barbecue or pork barbecue?" Jonah finally spoke in a normal voice. "Why not both?" The meeting adjourned. The X's were headed back to Centauri, Jonah back to the Weimar Republic plantation, and Key Lime down the hallway to her office. Zelda said to me, "We'll see you in a few days." She then departed by way of the back door. A typical Syrian gambit. Never do the expected. To explain Zelda's remark, I had booked a cabin on her star freighter, I'll See You in the Rapture. It was leaving Thursday for Sigma Draconis. Mission over. I'll leave it to posterity to decide whether it was successful or not. I had a few days to amble around Ernestine, maybe take a nap in the park, throw breadcrumbs to the geese who spent their days near the Bull by the Horns Canal, and drink the best coffee in the universe. So I rested up, recharged my batteries, knowing full well the denizens of Sigmas 2, 3, and 4 in the Sigma Draconis system would be argumentative, hard to get along with, and at times just plain nasty. They would also pretend they were none of these things.